Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, hello, hello. We have a great show and we're not going to delay because we have a special guest backstage. Her
Yes.
name is the Oracle and we
Woohoo.
absolutely love her. So we're going to bring her in because we've got some special things to share. Hello, hello,
Thank you so
Oracle.
much for having me. So excited to be here and be part of the Fem Talk ladies and discover, transform, and erase some bad information that's out there.
Yes.
Absolutely. So we are talking about astrology tonight, everyone, but we are also talking about everything that connects us to this beautiful earth that we live on and to spirit. So that's why we have the amazing Oracle here. I'm gonna give a testimony first, right? Just because I gotta give her credit where the credit is due. So I
Yes.
have been her client. She is absolutely amazing. She will help connect you to spirit. She will help connect you to some past lives, help you remove and break through some limitations. So you need to connect with her, and we will share her information. It'll come up on the screen. We'll share her information so that you can connect with her if you need to break some barriers. But we
There you
want to get
go.
into this conversation. So I want to ask you about, how it's all connected, because people think about astrology sometimes and they think it's voodoo or woo woo or whatever other words they use to describe it. Talk to us about like what it means to really be connected to the sun, the moon, the stars, like what it all means.
I feel like in our modern day, and we have a lot of nomenclature that talks about um, this antiquated nomenclature that is referring to these studies, these disciplines, and these methodologies as something bad or lesser energy, or you said voodoo or whatever, evil for other words.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But here's we have to remember that we humans are still animals, right? We are still part of
Mm.
nature. And for some reason, when we talk about ourselves, we kind of separate ourselves from nature just because we live in something that has a structural foundation.
Mm.
And we forget that we have evolved into the people that we are. But for since the beginning of time, humans have looked up at the sky. It was our first reference point to God, universe, source. This was our first point of navigation.
Mm-hmm.
This is how the great philosophers talked about it. We have people like Plato who did astral projection, and he was the first one to map out the cosmos. Now, he had no access to that, but he
Mm-hmm.
was able to define that. And later on, hundreds of years after his death, was he proven correct on the things that he has seen through his astral projections.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So in astrology, we're studying the transits of the types of stars, the planets, and the constellations. And the idea behind this is that when these frequencies, because each planet has its own individual frequency, gets closer or further away from us, it's just like a radio signal. When we're closer to a
Mm.
sound, it's clear. When we're further away from the sound, it's not as clear.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on when you were born, you can have been imbued or you can have been imprinted with these types of signals. So just looking at this in a way that it was like the day you were born, there was a song playing on the radio, and your mother imprinted that. And every time she talks about the moment you were born, she goes, "Well, this song was playing. It's an imprint." So you've been
Mm-hmm.
imprinted with a signal. And if I look at my astrology and it says Aquarius, you're this is you, and I go, oh well, that doesn't really sound like me. It's because that's meant for like the general consumption of people under that sign. It's not fine tailored to the very unique signs that are affecting or influencing you in your chart.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So the top three things we can look at in astrology for us to know about more about ourselves. And I recommend if you're more interested in this, you can check out astrocafe.com. It's a free chart. I'm not sponsored by them or anything. It's just something that I use.
Mm-hmm.
And you can look at your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign. So
Mm.
these are the top
Wait,
three.
I have to stop you because I heard of the sun sign and the moon sign. What's the rising sign? Never heard of that one before.
The rising sign is also known as our ascending sign.
Mm,
And this is kind of like your sign that you're born into, your sun sign, is who you're designed to become fully into, because each sign has a lesson, a soul lesson inside of it. um your rising sign is like your spiritual personality, how people could perceive you. It's like the outfit that you wear when you walk into a room of people. And then your moon sign is how you process things emotionally. The sun, if you think about it, is an activator. It's gives. So this is why your sun sign is that giving energy of what you aspire to be. The
mm,
moon is thought of to be the thing that governs our emotions,
Mm.
and the ascending is that personality energy, and this is how we kind of like take action in the world. So
mm,
for me personally, my sun is Aquarius, so that means I'm a humanitarian. I'm a We are the most rare sign of all of the zodiacs. We're the
mm,
Because we have the least population in the planet that's born under this sign. We're
Mm.
thought to be the sign that has the most geniuses,
mm,
because we are a forward thinking sign. We're the sign of telecommunication. We're entering into the age of Aquarius now for the next 10,000 years. This is why everything is so digital now. Boom, boom, fast. We want to talk. We want to learn. We want to be inclusive, right? My rising sign is Aries, which is an action sign. It's the sign of me. It's the first sign of fire in the entire lineage of the zodiac. So it just wants to do for itself, but it's fast acting, it's passionate, it's relentless. And then
mhm,
my moon sign, being the emotional aspect, is Libra. So this sign is very charming. This sign is very it wants to make things beautiful. It's very luxury sign. It's the most
Mm.
romantic sign in the entire zodiac.
mm,
So when you go into a Libra's home, you're going to see, oh, you like the finer things in life, because they're surrounding themselves with that charming, sophisticated luxury energy. And you guys can't see my car, but it has very special seats inside of it, because I definitely am influenced by my Libra sign. And as a musician, it influences me further because I feel I'm a very romantic woman. So yeah, that's just like kind of like a little bit of jumping into the astrology of things.
So
Mm.
this is so good. So first of all, you just schooled me on things that I just did not know about with the signs, because you only think about the sun sign, right? Like I know I was born
Mhm.
on March 22nd. I'm an Aries. I don't even know. I knew about a moon sign, but I don't know what my moon sign is, and I definitely don't know what my rising sign is. So I'm gonna look this up while we're here. But how does one get started in taking a look? Because I know when I look at just Aries in general and the description of, and for the most part, there are some things in there that I don't agree with, but for the most part, I'm like, wow, this describes, me. So how does one get started in kind of figuring out how to put it all together?
So you definitely need to know where you were born,
Mm-hmm.
because here's the thing that people don't realize. Hi, where you were born influences your energy, and if you move,
Mm-hmm.
when you move to a new location, it changes your energy in your field again. There's something called locational astrology. Every time you physically move to a place, it
Mm-hmm.
influences an aspect in your chart. So I traveled 11 countries in the last 2 years and 26 states. And when I need a specific facet of myself to be revealed, I look to see where's the strongest placement in my chart to be able to be influenced by that energy in my
Mm-hmm.
chart. So
Okay.
you will go to something like astrocafe.com.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know where you were born and your time of birth. Your time of
Mm-hmm.
birth will get this really fine tuned to be able to look up each and every sign. If you did a general reading, it wouldn't be as precise as having your time of birth. And
Okay.
unfortunately, a lot of cities don't put time of birth on the birth certificate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Because
you're
I
gonna
know,
hopefully
Mine
have
does.
your
especially,
mom with that memory.
it's,
I know. Oh, I don't have. This is
Mine
so
does.
interesting. The whole conversation. And what really brought it home for me a few years ago is when I went to Sedona, in Arizona, and we went and we had a guide take us, And he started talking a lot of spiritual stuff, and we was like, we just like, kind of didn't take what he was saying because we was like woo woo woo. But then too much of what he was saying was lining up to a Christian philosophy, and I said, "Wait a minute! I think we need to listen to this guy." And by the end of the tour, we was all believers. But when we went on when we went on this I guess rock, the frequencies and the energies now was palatable. You could feel them in your body. You could feel them around you. I mean, you could feel, like your hands moving. So this whole concept of energies, and that's why a lot of people go to Sedona and do these things, because that's one of the areas where the energies are, I guess, more evident than other places. So this really opened up my mind to the fact that there was a lot more behind this, and that oneness with the spirit is how you really, really tap into what the Lord is saying to you. You could hear him, you could feel him more. You don't second guess when you feel the spirit talking to you. You hear the spirit talking to you. So to me, I think it allows you to really learn more about who you are in the Lord, how he wants you to operate, to your point, how he wants you to like move, even as he speaks to you of other people, how you hear him, so that you could be that blessing that he sent into the world to speak to people. You're his hands, his feet, his mouthpiece. So this is to me just amazing. And I mean, everything you said, I'm going to look it up and try to figure things out, because I want to know more. So
I like the way you express this, and to your point, I just want to bring us back to that we still have primitive programming, and it is not beyond our capacity to open different facets of our mental or our quantum field. I'm going to get into a little bit of science side and out of the spiritual realm. And if we look at seagulls who see other seagulls in ultraviolet, or there's anemones in the bottom of the ocean that can see a spectrum of color that we can't see, how birds navigate is through the ability to feel the frequencies. We're still animals. It's just we have not been trained, and I'm not saying all of us, because there's a lot of cultures still now, like indigenous culture, or like when I was in Colombia, or even aspects parts in Romania, there's still a lot of cultures that teach how to connect to the intuitive aspect of ourselves, that are not just spiritual but also connected to the nature, because we are still natural things. And I like that you said about we are, and I'm going to use my own terminology, creator, source, spirit, but all in all it's still the same. And I like to look at this as a way of saying, I will never put an experience that someone's experiencing in a box and say that it is only called this, because we reach far beyond the time of language. Language didn't always exist, and there's so many types of tongues on the planet that the same thing has many, 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 many names. And as long as I'm in a place of non-judgment and receptivity out of love, I will always be in the proper alignment of what that is. And I feel like that's what we have to remember. Um, to your other point about being a mouthpiece or hands, I'm a psychic medium, a healing medium by I can't say trade, by gift, by chosen, by choosing it back, choosing it in return, and fine tuning my skills. I had a wellness center that ran for 7 years that Spirit opened with $5 in my pocket. By listening to Spirit, I healed a disability that I should have never been healed from. I couldn't walk. I passed out more than multiple times a month. I had cognitive impairments. I had fibromyalgia. So when we're in a space where we're listening, and even some places will say that even meditation is bad or evil, but where is silence and learning about self? When did that become bad? That's only it's a limited belief, so that you cannot connect to the God source power that's in you, that's been gifted to you, that everybody has access to. Because the ego wants us to believe that that is only meant for the saintliest of people.
That's right.
But when we start to look at the saintliest of people, they were just people.
Right.
They were just
We all, that's in us all. It's in all of us. God is in all of us. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I want to share a real quick 4-part story, because I've been doing this professionally now for over a decade. I know it doesn't look like it, but it's okay.
Not at all.
Humble brag hashtag. And so on Friday, I had a woman call me, and before she could ask what her question was, I knew she was calling about her husband who was unfaithful. She asked
Mm,
me, "Is my husband being unfaithful?" And I said, "Yes, he is." And I knew that so clearly because even before she pressed her question, I saw it. Now, this particular person, his name is Chris. He's a millionaire. We won't give any like real name, and we're gonna call the woman Karen because again, we're not giving a real name.
right.
He's a millionaire, and so she says she has spoke to other two mediums who did not give her the information that I gave her. So she was
Mm,
arguing with me on the information I was giving her. Now, this is what happened. I told her that he's been unfaithful since her birthday. Her birthday was November. I said, he's been unfaithful since your birthday because of your big argument. Now, this is me giving information. This is not her telling me.
right,
Right.
right, right.
So this is an affair that she's having. And she goes, "Oh my God." This is after, "Oh my God." That's exactly when things started changing. And this was her epiphany. And I want to drive this home. I was
I know.
praying and fasting and I asked God to give me clarity.
Mm.
And I had a dream that my husband was having an affair. So
Mm,
I started looking. Now she's calling me months later, still looking. Why? Because she's not trusting in
check this
what the in her ask. When she
Mhm.
received her miracle, and this is what we do all the time, she didn't trust in her ask. She was
Mm.
doubting it.
out.
Okay,
Mm,
because she went down the wrong avenue and found the wrong woman, didn't get proof. Now I'm talking to her, and she's arguing with me. Fine, and I tell her, "You're gonna find the proof you need in the mutual," and these were the words, very specific, "in your mutual bank account." I don't know he's
Mm.
rich. I don't know he has a singular bank account. You have a singular bank account. He's spending your mutual money on these dates. She argues,
Wow.
argues, argues. 30 minutes of arguing with me, which is fine because, I'm $7 a minute. So what difference does it make to me? I'm teasing. It's really 450. Anyways, so she hangs up, and the next day her best friend calls me in the app. And her best friends, like, I've talked to her best friends hundreds of times already at this point over the years, and I didn't know they were best friends. She goes, "I sent her to you because she talked to two other psychic who said everything's going to be fine, don't worry about it, he's not doing nothing." And she said, "No, go to Oracle because she's going to give it to you dirty, she's going to give it to you ugly, she's going to give it to you raw, but she's going to give it to you for your transition and for your
Mhm.
healing and for your realness and for your clarity." Okay. So now what is this other? We need to give her a second name to not confuse. Let's another name other than Karen. Let's just call her Maria. So Maria, my continuous client, says to me, "I know her husband's a bad person because 7 years ago he put something in my drink and he raped me.
oh
And
my God.
I never told her. I never had the
Mm.
courage to tell her."
Oh wow.
This conversation goes on for 20 minutes because this was the first time she ever verbalized it.
Mm.
That's the second part of the saga. Day 3, it is now Saturday or Sunday. Day 3, I get a phone call from a number that looks familiar, but the voice is different. The app tells me when someone calls me because it shows a number how many times they've called me. So I answer the phone, and it's Chris, and he says, "Am I a bad person?" This is the first question I get. So now I'm witnessing inside of Chris that he's acting out of anger towards other people because he feels like he has power and that he has entitlement. Is this a bad person? Who am I to say someone is bad and who is someone good? Can I say
Right.
that someone is reckless? Can I say someone is entitled? Can I say someone's empathetic? Yes, I can.
Right.
But I'm not here to judge anyone. You're asking for clarity.
Mhm.
So
Right. Right.
after a few minutes of me giving him his reading, I hear a woman in the background. She starts yelling and she grabs the phone and she goes, "Oracle, this is Karen, Chris's wife. I
Mm,
played the reading that you gave me. He denied everything, but I went into the mutual bank account and it's all right here, Oracle. I found all her information. I know what she looks like. I know where they've been. and he's lying, saying that he's not had slept with her, that he's only given her $100, but it was all here the whole time. You were correct, and I want to thank you
Mm.
for giving me this information, because I asked God for clarity, and I cried and I cried and I cried, and nowhere to be found was this clarity, but it was. She just couldn't. She just couldn't accept it.
Yeah.
So now they're both on the phone together, trying to figure this out. We hang up. Final part of the saga, part 4. The best friend calls back. What did we name her? Maria. We named her Maria. She says, "Hey, I wanted to give you an update about my friend and her husband." I said, "Okay." And she goes, "The husband has now been indicted by court. A woman is standing up because it's claiming that she got raped by him." The friend, the Maria, never said nothing. 7 years later, another woman is coming up
Mm.
to say that he has been raped by the same man.
Wow.
Mm.
Yet his first question was, "Am I a bad person?"
Am I a bad person?
He needed somebody to tell him he wasn't.
Mhm.
That
Mm.
to appease his ego.
He needed to be heard, but he never heard those words from me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
Wow.
So this is something that is an unfoldment of something bigger.
Right.
Mhm.
This is, and someone who's speaking from a place who also has been betrayed in my life, and I'm sure some of other women that are here probably can attest to that, knowing that feeling too.
Yeah.
Right.
That lunacy that comes in after, and the disbelief of your grief from someone who's supposed to love you doing something like this. But this could have saved other women. This could save this woman, and we can all be instruments for other people. But to get even to this point of being able to speak to this woman, it took me a lot of confidence in my gifts for this woman to argue.
Exactly.
She's hurt. She's angry. She's yelling. It's coming at me, but it's not. I can't take that personal. And
Right.
the 4 agreements, I cannot take this personal because it's not mine.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm just here to reflect the mirror back.
Yeah.
And it happens more often than not.
Wow.
I think that's the best part of it. The
Yeah.
reflecting the mirror part. Because everybody wants to harp on, oh, where she's getting this information. Oh, it's demonic. Oh, it's psychic. It's this, it's that. Is it really? Or is it just reflecting the mirror back?
Yeah. Yeah.
And having somebody confirm some things that you already know.
That you already know. That's one thing I've always learned, is that a lot of especially when people are, look, to the same point, I've many times gotten, information from God that I spoke to somebody into their lives. And when you do that, it's not a surprise to them, and it shouldn't be. I've learned is that this is something God had already given you. You had already heard about, like you said, it should be a confirmation, because you should know who you are. You already heard these things, saw these things, felt these things. So when somebody speaks to you, it is not, and that fight that you mentioned, Oracle, was her, like you said, not wanting to believe what she already knew.
Right.
There was signs, there was information. She prayed about getting it. That's another thing. A lot of people say, God, I want to know the answer. God, I need direction. God, tell me what to do. And 9 times out of 10, they hide the fact and
Show
want
me.
somebody to tell them something different.
Trust the niggle. Trust the niggle. Trust your intuition. When you're asking for clarity, you're only not going to believe it when it doesn't conform to your agenda or the conformity of your life or the comfort that you are in. And mind you, if you're asking for clarity, it's because you are already uncomfortable. So how much suffering is enough suffering before it be made in the life that you want to live, the life that you want to lead? We have to drop off the bags in order for us to be propelled into the future that is being held against it's being castrated, it's being suffocated, it's being held in captive until we're ready to let go of a belief, a limitation, a person, a situation. And that's when we can become the best version of ourselves. It's not a punishment. None of it's a punishment. It's an opportunity to love through it. It's an opportunity when we ask to learn how to forgive, when we ask to learn how to have patience, when we ask to learn how to strength. You're asking to be led through those tests.
Mm-hmm.
You're literally manifesting those things into your life to prove to yourself that you have capacity.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh,
Oh
I
yes.
Yes.
love that you use that
Good
word
stuff.
capacity.
Ah,
Yeah. That was a whole preach word right there.
I know.
A whole preach word. Oh my gosh. Listen, I wanted to ask you about because as you and Dr. Melissa were talking, I was thinking about how people even tap into like because people have their own gifts, right? Like how do they tap into their gifts? And they may have known their gifts before and maybe it's suppressed, but how do they tap into that? Like, and how do they this is a two-part question. How they tap into their gifts, that's number one. And then number two is because we were talking about that whole 4-day saga, how do you trust the gifts?
mm,
That's the that's the
Those are
kicker.
two really important questions.
Mhm.
So there's plenty of information online. There's plenty of books. There's plenty of teachers. I'm one of them, oracleoverpower.com. But I would say is how do you learn in the mundane world? Is it through
Mhm.
hearing? Is it through
Mhm.
seeing? What sense do you use to learn in your world?
Mhm.
Because that is your natural ability in the how you pick up information ethereally.
Mhm.
Okay, for me, I'm very visual. I notice details. When I was growing up, I did visual communication very effortlessly. I was a young girl, maybe even 9 or 10, talking to people who were 60 years old, asking me for guidance, and I never understood why that was a thing. But it was just obvious and apparent to me. There are things in people's lives that they're just naturally structured to, and if you sit in the silence or you follow curiosity. Let
Mhm.
curiosity be your superpower, man.
Mhm.
Like, don't limit yourself. The world's too big, experiences are too vast. There has been too many footsteps behind you for just to
Mhm.
be in this little box of belief of only it can be this way. The moment you
Mhm.
conform to just a very small tunnel vision of structure,
mm,
you've lost the ability to savor a million other spices in life, you
Mm.
know?
mm.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And you said something else, and because I know you and because I've worked with you and we've gone there, you talked about the footsteps behind you. I want you to mention why like ancestry comes up a lot and why it's even important for the now and for who you are now.
It's important. Oh, about the trust, real quick. So, in order to
Hmm.
get to self, to trust yourself and your intuition, start a journal, start a log, be the
Hmm.
scientist of your life, and log it.
Hmm.
Even if it sounds wild,
Mm.
I had a dream. There was one day I had a dream about my ex partner being murdered, and I saw a very specific color and a specific can, and that day he got shot. Okay,
Hmm.
and so write it down, tell people about it, because what you're
Hmm.
doing is you're creating a validation inside of yourself. Seek it.
Hmm.
Okay, the ancestor. We ourselves are all connected through DNA. This is why when you do an ancestry.com, you go, oh my God, I'm from Syria 1.0. I'm Egyptian 1 point something. That is information that's sitting inside of your cellular memory of your body. It is literally in your blood information. So there's no way that you could cognitively keep and store all that information. And all of those trials, all of those dramas, all of those tribulations, everything, all of that, um, everything has been stored and imprinted inside of you and is passed down for the
Hmm.
next person to make adjustments and then pass down. And then they make adjustments and then pass down. So this is why you could have a gene inside of you from 10 ancestors ago that gives you baldness or some weird genetic condition from like 20 people ago. If I want people to think of it like this, if something from 20 people ago could affect you physically, why could it not affect you emotionally?
Hmm.
Mm.
Hmm.
Why do we think there's a barrier there? It's
Right.
not.
Right.
Yeah.
You are still them processing what they haven't completed.
Haven't
Yeah.
completed. And so many
Yeah.
people, oh, I wanted to, so many people struggle with mental incapacity or mental imbalances and blame themselves or can't, like, look, I'm a bad person. I can't figure this out. And one of the things I realized in listening to the stories of my mother, her mother, and a few of those stories was that certain things in my lineage is not because of the person that I'm
Mhm.
looking at or who I am. there's been things passed down to us so that my feelings of like I did something wrong, number one, is out, meaning that I didn't do this by myself. But number two, I can now deal with it, to your point, in a different way because I've seen the manifestation of how they dealt with it, which wasn't to the healing of it. So, but now in my generation, because I've seen what the other generations were bringing in, I can work on the healing of it.
Yeah.
Because now I recognize the same symptoms that I'm dealing with that were being dealt with in the past in my other generations.
Yeah.
And when that then the that feeling of I'm not worthy kind of dissipates because this is something you created. A lot of people think that negativity is something they created and it's not. Oh my God, that was so good.
That's why culturally,
this is
right?
Generational trauma passed down, informational trauma passed down. What is the thing that we have that your ancestors didn't have? Access to information. This is the informational age.
Yeah.
We need to use the access to the information to the best of our ability so that we make a change. And here's the thing. We don't just make a change down. And what I mean down is our children. We can make a change up.
Yes.
Up to our parent, our grandparent, my mom, bipolar my entire life. 5 years of working with me, off all of the medicine that she was on for 30 years.
Jesus.
Yes.
So it's not just your biological children. I have a stepchild who I raised. It influences everyone you touch because knowledge and memory is passed from person to person when you enter the similar state and you have resonance between you, trust, heart coherence, influences, and it adapts into that person's belief system. You are a spark. You are one candle that illuminates 1,000 other candles. There is not information that's too small to pass down. Even if you think it's falling on deaf ears or someone's not taking actionable steps to what you perceive them to be, you are seeding. You are planting a seed. And it's not for you to stand underneath that tree, but it's for you to witness the oxygen. Because that's as far as you're gonna get, because the rest of that it's not for you to witness.
Ooh.
Wow.
Oh, right.
The breath of life. Did she just say the breath of life?
Yes, she did.
Wow.
Sounded like
Yes, she did.
Oh, no, you have to come back, Oracle. I will just touch the surface of all this stuff.
I told you. I'm going to give another testimony just from working with you because you talked about other dimensions. We went into ancestry and I could go back but that would take a long time. But I wanted to mention some other things that came up for me when I was working with Dominique. First of all, I was awake, right? And there was this illumination that I knew it was spirit, right? I was completely awake. It was like in my hands, right? And I knew it was spirit coming to me for something that I needed, right? As we were working through things, but I was completely awake. I was not asleep. I was not dreaming. It was illumination in my hands, the spirit. I saw an angel behind me, clear as day, right? And I also saw a glimpse of another dimension. Now, this may sound crazy to other people, right? And I didn't even know what to do with this. Again, awake. I was not sleeping. I was not dreaming. I was awake, and I saw a glimpse of another dimension. And the next time I talked to her, I was like, is this possible? Like, is this real? This is real. But it's like when you start to awaken certain senses, right? And awaken even your belief, right? That there is this connection. And I'm going back to the astrology for a minute because there is this connection with God, with source, however you want to put it, even with the universe. And for me, it's like God made the universe, so we are connected to the universe. So when you start to make that connection, you start to wake up and some of your senses start to wake up. And there's things that happen that you will probably, it might freak you out even a little bit, right? Because your belief system of the old tells you that stuff is not real, right? But I wanted to mention that there's certain things that come up. Now I know that these things were for me, and I'm not going to go into my whole story, right? We'll have to do that some other time. But I know that they were personally for me from what I was working with through working with Dominique. but I'm just saying, like, the awakening that happens is that's what I really wanted to get to. There's an awakening that happens, and you will have certain experiences that you probably wouldn't even believe possible until you
Right.
actually go through it. So I just wanted to mention that. I had to give a testimony because I just want to talk about how amazing she is. She is a light. She is a loving person. For anybody out there who believes that this stuff is woo woo, it's not. It's not. When people
Mm.
come with love and the right spirit, it is not woo woo. And you will be able to get rid of things that have been holding you down for years. For years. And
Yes.
I can tell
Yes.
you
I
stories
have.
about, yeah, stories about things that came up through that process, things that I have been able to release. So I just wanted to mention that because I had to give a testimony. These things are real, and I'm God's child through and through, unapologetically all day long. But I still believe in our connection to
Okay.
everything else that God has provided us with. So
Mhm,
just
mhm.
wanted to say
Amen.
that.
Amen.
Yeah,
Anything that
Absolutely.
makes you kinder, more loving, more empathetic,
yeah,
closer to your knowing,
yeah.
wiser, and more in service to others, trust it.
Mhm.
Just trust it.
Mhm.
Sounds like the
You
gifts
don't
of the
have to know how
spirit to
electricity
me.
comes into
It
your
sounds like
house.
the gifts of the spirit. You know what I'm saying? When you know the
Yeah,
gifts of the spirit, that's what she just mentioned.
yeah.
And understanding what those gifts mean. It's like if
Right.
you don't, do you believe in gravity? If you gravity holds us
Right.
down in this earth. It's the
Right.
energy that comes from the sun to keep us grounded here in the earth and create, and it keeps the atmosphere where it all is. If
Yeah.
you could believe in gravity, why can't you believe in all these other things that
That have that same
God and the
energy.
atmosphere
Yes.
gives
And
us?
force.
Right.
I'm
That's
with
right.
you.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I think we have to take a commercial break,
I
but
know.
let me know if you are. We don't
We can
want
keep
to,
that up. I know.
but, but let us know if you are staying around because this is so good. This is so good. So we're gonna take a quick commercial break, everybody. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. And we are back. Here we go. And we still have the beautiful Oracle here with us, giving you a word, everyone. So we've
Yes.
been talking about astrology, our connection to the earth, the moon, the sun, the stars, the universe, spirit, spirit. So I don't know if you ladies want to ask a question because you know I could go on and on and on. So I'm gonna give somebody else the opportunity to speak.
Uh, Um, one of the things I would love to know is what happens when a lot of people I've heard a lot of people wanting to get readings, and one of the things you said you do are readings. What is the process, and do you come in there telling you something, or do you just pick up from this energy the person is what they need to know? Like how do you go about that?
Okay, so with a reading, there's different types of readings, and none of them are innately evil. We're just listening to information. We are fluent in a language that other people aren't because we've trained ourselves to listen into the capacity that's our strongest natural ability. And for me, I'm clairvoyant. Sometimes I hear things, but mostly I see things like charades. So if you ever played charades with me in real time, I would be the best person to choose as your partner. Hands down, pick me, okay? Um, the process for something like that, I do different types of readings because they have different things. There's something called Akashic reading. Akashic reading is the information of everything that has ever been, everything that ever will be. Trees have information. Um, there is something there, the most known one is tarot. Tarot are basically just pieces of paper with pictures on them. Pieces of paper with pictures on them that don't have a good or bad value, kind of like money. It just is what it is. This is nothing. There is nothing attached to this piece of paper but a neutral standpoint for guidance. Tarot originally was made as a game
Mm-hmm.
to talk about the daily activities of somebody's world and to create conversation. It started to be when the church started to populate and move away from anything pre-church, paganism, etc. That's when we started to deem it as bad, because the church wanted us to have and only rely on the power of the church for our information to be received
Right.
from them and their doctrine.
Right.
So if you're listening to anything else other than us, we're gonna deem this as bad. Okay.
Exactly.
What happens for me, and I can't talk about for everyone, but for me, because I'm a channeler, there's two ways to do this. Someone could grab a deck of cards, and there's 72 cards in here, and memorize them, bottom from bottom to top, back to front. Every color, if it's upside down or if it's upright, means something different. The combinations mean something different depending on what it's next to. These are angel cards, by the way. And so this is a discipline that can take average of 10 years to learn. For most
Mm.
people, it takes 10 years to learn tarot because it's that detailed. And that's only if you're just reading the actual card. For someone like me who opens a channel, I invite the angels into my space to protect us, to give us the highest clarity. And what I physically feel in my body is like a waterfall on top of my head. And it feels like
Mm.
water is being poured into me with a sense of pressure around me. So, like if you were to go into water, you feel pressure. And when you come out of the water, you feel heavy. So, those ambient pressures are felt in my body while I'm giving a reading. And then I can feel if in my emotional body, I can feel sad, happy. If I'm doing a mediumship reading, which is me talking to crossover loved ones, and I just did a gallery reading, which was speaking to 30 people at one time with their spirit that they brought in, who they wanted to speak to, and they just all sit there together, and I pick and choose who's getting the message, and I'll deliver a message from their crossover loved one. And when something like that is happening, I the human have to learn to distinguish me and the spirit, because
Right.
the spirit's death, I could feel. I felt shotguns, like I felt myself shot. I have felt
Mm.
the agony of the death. I have felt the grief of the moment, the unfinished business. I have felt that in myself, and I can't let that feeling carry me away, because then I'm just a crying mess of emotion. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, it does affect me, but I have learned to differentiate and understand that this is not mine, that
Mm-hmm.
I'm just holding it for a moment. I'm holding the hot pot just for a moment until I
Right.
place it on the table for someone else to consume.
Right.
And then
Mm.
once they're eating it, I don't have any recollection
Let
of
it
what
go.
was even in the pot
Oh,
to begin
okay.
with. I just know I was the waiter. I grabbed it. It was hot. I placed it. You ate it. Okay, you had a good time, or you
Right.
received it. You're
Right.
full. You're satiated, and I move on.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
But I have to stay authentic.
Mm-hmm.
I have to stay in for agreements again. I have to make sure that what I'm saying is true, and I have to kind of close my eyes to to the reaction of the person in front of me, so it doesn't influence the confidence and the understanding of the information that I'm getting. Because in the beginning, when you're just learning, you're like, oh, like they're freaking out. So it's like you're once you get to the point where you're confident, then like you can look someone in the face and go, "This is just what it is,"
Yeah.
Right. Right.
and not be swayed. So
Mm.
I've
Thank
Have,
you
read
for that.
people
That
that
was.
I've never seen.
Mm-hmm.
hmm
How
I've read
did
people I've never seen their face through text messages. I've read
mm,
people on
I
internet
was going to
live where I
ask.
have not seen them.
I was going to ask, was there ever someone you
So you can't do a
refused
cold reading.
to work with?
People can, oh, you can do a cold reading. You
Oh.
you can't do a cold reading in somebody you can't see.
Mm.
wow. And she just asked, is there anyone that you
I didn't
ever
know
like
that.
refuse to read or do? Yeah. Have you ever refused
Yes,
any?
Oh,
Yes, I have, because they were inviting a very dark energy into the space. And I said, absolutely not. That's not me. You're going to go somewhere else for that.
Wow.
Yes, I
Mhm.
have.
Yeah.
Because, and you could feel, even if I had never heard the name before, you could
Right.
feel the heat in the room. You could
Mm,
feel sense. I smell a lot of times. You could
mm,
smell
Mhm.
things. You could feel like pain on your skin, and
mm,
inside
Yeah.
of you it doesn't feel good. And
mhm,
it's a
Right.
different not feeling good. It's a distinguishment between you go to the gym and you hurt all over, but you know it's a good pain,
mhm,
versus I need to go to the hospital because I hurt all over and this is a bad pain.
mhm,
Right.
Mm.
Right.
mhm,
Right. Right.
mhm, mm.
I,
And
I'm
it's
I-
like,
I'm a color person. I see colors on people and in people, and I moved. Talk about being in a different area from where you
mhm,
were born. I moved and I was working in Atlanta and walked into this cafeteria that I walk into every day like it's nothing. But this day it was black,
mm,
completely black in there. And before I could even step in the door and I pushed the door in, I was like, ooh, there's a lot of hell in here.
mm,
Mm.
I just didn't go in. I ate at my desk. I couldn't. And the next day I tried, I went in, the windows, and mind you, it's completely covered with windows. The
mhm,
sun is always shining.
mhm.
That day, everything was black. And I was like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that could have been me, but it was enough for me to say, I don't need to be here.
Yeah.
I don't need to go in there.
And that's you trusting your intuition, because you
Yeah.
were seeing the negative energy in the room
Hmm.
as the color
Absolutely.
black. And that's
Mhm.
important. That's important to trust it when you see it. And it's so bizarre, and it's so left field, and it's so like, whoa, it's catching your attention for a purpose.
Yeah.
It's like that pain that you're just like, whoa, that's really getting my attention. What
Hmm.
is
Mhm.
that?
Right.
Mhm.
Be so curious all the time. That is like, I feel like that's my superpower. And like, really, that should be the embodiment of everyone. Tap into that child state and just question everything, not judge
Mhm.
it,
Mhm.
not judge
Question.
it,
Question
not
it
limit
right.
it, but question it.
Yeah.
And then
Try
question
to
your capacity to be within that space.
That's right.
Mm. And talk a little bit more about that before we close up, because you said that before too. Your capacity. Talk about why that's important.
Your capacity, our capacity is very important, because we have a limit of how much we can regenerate our own energy. Okay.
Mm.
And we give energy by work, holding space for people to vent to us, our own dramas that are happening in our life. And the more stressors that we have, it's kind of like a buoy. If you could imagine a
Mm.
buoy sitting in the water, every time we have a stressor, we push the buoy down. Okay.
Mm.
And this limits the amount of joy that we could take in. And then we
Mm.
keep pushing down and pushing down. And so we're living a life in servitude and not in service to
Hmm.
something,
Mm.
for something, for tit for tat, instead of
Mm.
living an authentic life full of joy and living in a space that feels good and
Mm.
pleasurable. And I'm not saying to the extent of addictions or anything. I'm not talking about that kind of pleasure.
Mhm.
Pleasure in existing, pleasure
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
Right.
gratitude, pleasure in
Mhm.
love.
Right. Mm.
Yeah.
So this is why we have limits. We have to trust the limits of where we're at. And we
Yeah.
get so conditioned that when we're tired, push through. We get so
Yeah.
conditioned to go, oh, I still have to go pick up Billy and then do this and do that and do that. And we reward ourselves with rest as a reward.
Mm.
Right.
Rest is not a reward.
Yeah.
Rest is a priority.
Yeah.
Mm.
Amen
Mm.
to that. Oh, there's so many things I want to ask you, and we're getting close to the close of the show. So one quick last one. How do you, for yourself and even to tell other people, how to I guess kind of like cleanse yourself in order to have the capacity that you talked about to be able
Mhm.
to receive what comes next, like for the next day? How do you cleanse yourself?
This is a multi-part thing. First of all,
Mhm.
it's acknowledging when you have reached the capacity,
Mhm.
and letting people, that person that's calling next, go, you know what? I always want to hear your story and I want to be there for you, but I don't have any more space for this today. It's acknowledgement.
Mm-hmm.
Because you doesn't matter how much you clean if you just keep the
Right.
machine going.
Right.
The second thing is doing the things that nourish you and recognizing what are the things that nourish you when you're stressed. Walking, oh, balloons, hey, walking, bath, sea salt bath, gentle music, limiting your intake of stressors, including what people forget, including violence, those CIS shows, UFC, pornography, drama, even idle TV that's just like Jersey Shore or like things that are just meant to give you like dopamine rushes and gossip. Limiting these things help your capacity grow. Being authentic to recognizing when something doesn't feel good to just step away. If I'm at a table and somebody's gossiping about somebody else, I say, I'm not here for the he said or she said. That's not for me. And I have literally, the person who's afraid to offend cannot be honest. The person who's afraid to offend anyone can never be honest, and therefore you are not authentic. Get up and move. Get up and move. You can't control mouths of other people, but get up and move. Cleansing yourself is something simple. We can do things like a prayer is a cleanse. Sage is a smudging ritual of cleansing. Visualizing golden light while we're in the shower and then imagining that the soap does is negativity draining from us is another cleanse. Going and walking into nature without music, without talking, your feet on the ground, and you could imagine like every time you touch the earth that you're leaving a flower behind. So you're very mindful of your steps. Looking at water, looking at live water for 20 minutes changes the biochemistry in the brain.
Wow.
Beautiful way to cleanse.
Yeah.
Things happen when we connect with nature. So nature is your mother who is nourishing and giving all the time. It's like gardening. I love gardening. Why?
I took up gardening this year. Oh my gosh. And I keep on telling everybody it's so I feel so calm and I feel so like I feel a peace come over me doing that. But just to, for me, everything you were saying, all I kept the last few minutes, all I kept on hearing was think of things that are lovely, that are true. Scripted what God has told us to already think of. Think of these things. The cleansing, the peace, the joy, and clear your mind. These are things, and that's why there's when you open your mind to everything you just said, and then you look at what the Word of God is saying, you will see the oneness in everything. You will see that God is here in so many different levels for you. If you don't just, if you limit yourself to what man says, you won't ever receive nothing that you just said, and the witness of the truth you just gave.
Yeah. So. Amen. Well, I hate that we have to close this show. Everybody, this was so
much for 30 minutes.
So good. Yes, you have to come back, Dominique. You have to come back.
Thank you.
But we love you. We thank you so much for being here. Everyone out there, stay tuned for when the Oracle will come back to bless the show once more. And we also want you to join us again next week right here on Fem Talk at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Always.